Have you ever felt like you're slowly losing control over your life as you age, especially when it comes to the difficult choices we face as we get older? At the age of 70, Grandfather Park found himself reflecting on his past living arrangements, living with his children, hiring caregivers, and even staying in a nursing home. But none of these options gave him the comfort and autonomy he longed for. In this video, I'll share his journey to find peace in his golden years and how his story can help you understand the complexities of aging. If you're someone who fears losing independence, or if you're navigating the challenges of caring for an elderly loved one, this video is for you. Stay tuned until the end because Grandfather Park's solution is a game changer, and you might just find inspiration for your own life or the life of someone you care about. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video. You can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. At the age of 70, Grandfather Park found himself reflecting deeply on the many living arrangements he had experienced over the years. Life had brought him through different phases, living with his children, employing a caregiver, and even staying in a nursing home. Each of these living situations left him feeling unsatisfied, as if something important was missing. Though each had its own set of advantages, none of them provided the sense of fulfillment, comfort, or autonomy he was seeking in his golden years. He knew that he needed something more, something that would allow him to live out his later years with dignity, peace, and a sense of belonging. After much contemplation and soul-searching, and perhaps by a stroke of good fortune, he discovered a new living arrangement that truly resonated with him. This arrangement offered him the perfect balance of comfort, independence, and security, elements that he had long yearned for. It gave him a sense of freedom and peace he hadn't experienced in a long time, allowing him to embrace his life in a way that felt right. He decided to stick with this new chapter of his life, much to his relief and growing joy. To this day, this arrangement continues to provide him with the sense of contentment and autonomy he so deeply desires. I turned 70 this year, Grandfather Park reflects with a gentle smile. And I often think back to the years leading up to my 75th birthday, a time when I faced serious health challenges. My health issues led me to confront the inevitable. This life will not last forever. But when my beloved spouse was still by my side, I felt an unshakable sense of security. We had promised each other that no matter what happened, we would always be there for one another, through sickness and health. We kept that promise, even in the most difficult moments. Our hospital visits together were often filled with laughter, love, and a shared understanding, which made even the hardest times bearable. But when my spouse passed away, everything changed. After that, going to the hospital became something that filled me with dread. The thought of it weighed on me like a heavy cloud, and my anxiety would build as I approached each appointment. I found myself dragging my frail body to the hospital, enduring long waits and tiring procedures that left me drained of all energy. I'd come home exhausted, my body aching, feeling like a shadow of the vibrant person I once was. I have a son and a daughter who love me dearly, but they are both caught up in their own busy lives. They have their families, careers, and personal obligations to attend to. I didn't want to burden them with my health problems or my need for assistance, so I refrained from asking for help. I wanted them to focus on their own lives, to keep their peace. But, ironically, by holding back from asking for their support, I ended up creating a situation where, despite my best intentions, they had to take care of me more than they should have. And that, in turn, caused them stress and discomfort. One day, during a routine trip to the market, fate dealt Grandfather Park another blow. He lost his balance and fell, resulting in an injury that led to an unexpected hospitalization. After the accident, the doctor told him that he would need at least 6 months to recuperate fully. It was then that his children came up with a plan for him to alternate between staying at his son's house and his daughter's house, spending 3 months at each. But despite their loving gestures and willingness to care for him, Grandfather Park couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in their lives. There is a saying that resonates with him deeply. A parent's home is always the children's home, but the children's home can never be the parent's home. This saying carries so much truth for Grandfather Park. No matter how much his children tried to make him feel welcome, he could never fully feel at home in their houses. They were their homes, not his. Despite the comfort of their hospitality, he still longed for his own space, for a place where he could feel a sense of belonging and comfort. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Now, in the living arrangement he has chosen, Grandfather Park has found a sanctuary, a place that allows him to maintain his dignity and embrace the independence he has always cherished. It's not just about having a roof over his head. It's about reclaiming a sense of freedom and autonomy that nurtures his spirit. In this space, he has discovered that even in the twilight years of life, one can still create a fulfilling existence, one filled with joy, peace, and a deeper connection to oneself and one's past. Living in my children's homes for the past several months has been a real eye-opener for me, Grandfather Park reflects thoughtfully. While I am truly grateful for their love and hospitality, I couldn't escape the feeling of loneliness that lingered in my heart. No matter how comfortable or well-kept their homes were, I never could call them my own. It's a strange feeling, trying to convince myself that it's enough to simply have a place to sleep and eat, but the emotional distance between us remains ever present. Something vital was missing. It's as if a shadow hovers over every meal. I often eat alone in my room, while my children gather in the living room, chatting, laughing, and living in a world that feels increasingly foreign to me. With each meal, I am reminded of how isolated I am, and how much I miss the connection we once shared. And when they casually suggest that I prepare my meals, it feels more like a dismissal than a helpful suggestion. It feels like they see me as a burden, just another aging figure who is slowly being forgotten, a relic of the past. I often feel like I don't belong, not just in their homes, but in the world around me. I try to endure these feelings, to push them aside. But the awkwardness in our conversations cuts deeper than any physical pain. I know that my thoughts may seem outdated and that my words sometimes come out in a jumble. But I can't help but look back at the way things used to be when they were young. Life was simpler then. We shared laughter. We understood each other's feelings without the need for words. Now, as I grow older, I find myself struggling to connect with them. Their demeanor seems cool, distant, almost as if they see me as irrelevant, and it leaves me feeling invisible in my own family. After 6 long months in his children's homes, Grandfather Park felt an overwhelming desire to return to his own house, the place that still held traces of a life he had once cherished. It was then that he truly understood the meaning of the saying, "All that glitters is not gold." Though his home may be small and modest, it embodies the memories of his past and the sense of autonomy he had lost. His home, in all its imperfections, was where he felt most himself. However, even in his beloved home, he is not free from the harsh realities of aging. A recent leg injury served as a painful reminder of his physical limitations. His mobility is now severely restricted, and he faces constant pain, making even the simplest tasks, like grocery shopping, exhausting and difficult. After each trip to the market, he is left physically drained, his legs aching and his body drenched in sweat. His frailty is a constant reminder of his vulnerability. "This is not the life I had imagined for my golden years," Grandfather Park admits quietly. "But when I found myself struggling, I had no choice but to hire a caregiver. This decision has not been easy, especially financially. The cost of the caregiver, 500,000 VND per month, exceeds my pension, and it weighs heavily on me. I often feel guilty, knowing that my children can barely afford to help me. They give me just 10,000 VND each month, but that barely covers the caregiver's salary. It's a stark reminder of how challenging it can be to navigate life as an aging person, trying to maintain your independence while grappling with the realities of physical limitations and financial constraints. The complexities of aging become exponentially more challenging when resources are limited, and this reality has shaped much of my life in recent years. I often find myself longing for the hearty, nourishing meals that I know are common in wealthier households. Meals that offer more than just sustenance but also the warmth and comfort of abundance. However, over time, I've learned to adjust my expectations. I've come to accept that simply being full is enough. The hunger for something more, something richer, more satisfying, fades in comparison to the need to stretch my resources. I no longer feel justified in spending money on what I once considered essential when, in reality, my limited budget forces me to prioritize survival over luxury. This frugal way of life, however, has far-reaching consequences, particularly regarding the care I receive. Families with more financial means can hire professional caregivers who provide not only physical assistance but also emotional comfort. These families can create environments that are warm and inviting, offering nutritious meals that nourish both the body and the soul, ensuring that their loved ones are cared for with dignity and respect. Unfortunately, for those of us living on a fixed income, the situation is drastically different. The caregivers who do manage to step into my home often leave after only a few days. They cite the meager meals as their primary reason for departure, claiming they are unable to find enough sustenance in the food to maintain the energy required for such demanding work. They describe the meals as insufficient, almost like rabbit feed, and many cannot seem to adjust to the sparse provisions. This has been a crushing blow to my already fragile situation. The agencies that provide caregivers have grown increasingly reluctant to send anyone my way, sensing that the conditions in my home would not allow for long-term satisfaction. Their hesitation, though understandable, only deepens my sense of isolation. I am left facing the stark reality that I may have to consider alternatives I had always hoped to avoid. One such alternative is the nursing home. For years, I had tried to avoid the thought of moving into one. But now, as the need for consistent care becomes more pressing, the idea starts to seem more and more like a viable option, albeit one fraught with emotional weight. The idea of asking my son to help me transition into a nursing home feels like an additional burden to both of us. It's painful to acknowledge the growing distance between us, to accept that the path of aging often leads us to places we never imagined or wanted. As much as I try to deny it, the day may come when I have no choice but to let go of the comforts of my home. The nursing home I eventually found was far from ideal, a far cry from the peaceful, well-kept environment one might hope for in their later years. It was inexpensive, certainly, but it was also poorly equipped and lacked many of the amenities that might have made it a more comfortable and tolerable place to live. The rooms were bare, the services were minimal, and the atmosphere felt cold and institutional. Still, it was affordable on my pension, which was a relief in its own right. I could at least take comfort in knowing that I was no longer a financial burden to my children, who had struggled for years to support my caregiving costs. This thought brought some peace to my troubled heart, knowing that I was easing their financial strain, even if only a little. For a time, I decided to stay in the nursing home. It was not a choice I made lightly, but I understood that my children had their challenges and responsibilities, and I didn't want to add to their burdens. Yet, despite my acceptance of the situation, I soon found myself struggling to adjust to the strict routines and rigid structure of communal living. The nursing home felt more like a military institution than a place for rest and care. The regimented schedule and lack of personal freedom felt stifling, and I found it increasingly difficult to adapt. The rules were unyielding, and the lack of flexibility made me feel trapped. After a month, I made the difficult decision to leave. Returning home felt like a breath of fresh air, and I immediately felt the weight lift from my shoulders. Once again, I was alone, but in my own space, and that meant more to me than I had realized. The solitude, though it could be lonely at times, also offered me a sense of independence I had feared losing. I had reclaimed my life, at least in part, and the thought of enduring another day in that nursing home filled me with dread. I longed for the freedom of my own home, even if it meant continuing to manage on my own. As luck would have it, not long after returning home, an online grocery shopping service became available in my area. This new convenience made a huge difference in my life. I asked my daughter to help me order my groceries every day, which was no small task considering the complexity of my needs. The items could be picked up from a small mart located conveniently at the entrance of my apartment complex, and the young couple running the store proved to be an unexpected blessing. I no longer had to struggle with long walks to get my groceries, and the relief I felt was almost palpable. My legs, which had been painful and stiff, felt a little better, and the act of picking up my groceries felt like a small but important victory. The couple noticed my struggles with mobility and quickly became more than just storekeepers to me. They would always offer to carry my groceries up to the elevator without a second thought. As time passed, our relationship grew stronger. The kindness and generosity they showed me touched my heart deeply. We would chat as I picked up my groceries, and their warmth became a source of joy in my otherwise solitary existence. Over 6 months, we developed a friendship that I had not anticipated but was grateful for. Their presence in my life made my days brighter, but still, I couldn't shake the quiet anxiety that accompanied the passage of time. Though I wasn't unhappy, I was constantly reminded of the inevitable decline that comes with age. The reality of old age, its limitations and challenges, was something I had to confront more and more each day. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. One day, as I was on my way to the mart to pick up my groceries, I overheard the young couple arguing. Their voices carried over to where I stood, and my heart sank as I realized they were struggling with money. The wife had spent more than 100,000 won, money they couldn't spare, on durian, a rare treat for their child. The husband was upset, arguing that they could not afford such luxuries, especially with so many other financial obligations. He was worried about the future, about their ability to pay for their daughter's schooling if they kept spending on indulgences. I listened to their conversation with a heavy heart, feeling a deep sense of empathy for them. Their struggle felt all too familiar. The balance between providing for a family and saving for the future is one that many face, especially in difficult times. At that moment, I had an epiphany. I could help them in a way that would also help me. I approached them with an idea that I felt would be mutually beneficial. I proposed offering them 200,000 won each month in exchange for their help with some basic tasks around the house: laundry, tidying up, and preparing 2 simple meals a day. I assured them that the meals didn't need to be elaborate, just nourishing. I wanted to make it clear that this arrangement would not consume too much of their time. They could come to my house every day for a few hours, and in return, they would have a steady income. At first, they hesitated. They didn't want to accept money from me, someone they had come to consider a friend. They were reluctant, and I could see the uncertainty in their eyes. But I persisted, explaining that I truly wanted to help them, that I understood their struggles and wanted to offer them some financial relief. After some back and forth, they finally agreed. It wasn't easy for them, but they accepted my offer, and I could see the weight lifting from their shoulders. They now had a dependable source of income, and I had the assistance I needed to maintain my independence. For me, paying them 200,000 won a month was a fraction of what I would have paid for a caregiver or nursing home. This arrangement allowed me to maintain my independence, and it also gave them the financial help they so desperately needed. Their presence in my home was a welcome change, and it breathed new life into my days. I felt connected to them in a way that I had not anticipated, and the bond we had forged became a vital part of my life. The daily tasks they helped with were no longer burdensome, and they transformed my once lonely home into a place filled with warmth and activity. What started as a practical solution had become something much more, an unexpected friendship that provided joy, companionship, and a sense of purpose for both of us. The work has been light for me, and I've come to find immense joy in the simple routines we've developed together. Over the years, this young couple has become far more than just a part of my daily life. They have woven themselves into the fabric of my existence. Their presence has been a constant source of warmth, kindness, and support. Our relationship has evolved beyond the typical employer-employee dynamic, blossoming into a bond that can only be described as genuine friendship. This is not something I ever expected at this stage of my life, but I find myself deeply moved by the connection we've built. Their devotion to me has been nothing short of astonishing. I constantly find myself in awe of their thoughtfulness and care, which has exceeded even my expectations. They have provided me with a level of attention and compassion that is rare to come by, and it fills my heart with a sense of gratitude that words can hardly express. At 80 years old, I had never imagined that I would find such fulfillment, such companionship, without needing to rely on hired help or placing a burden on my children. The thought that I can live my golden years with a sense of comfort and ease, without the constant fear of loneliness or the looming prospect of a nursing home, is a gift I never anticipated. The fact that this young couple provides their service for just 200,000 won a month feels almost unbelievable. It is not merely a financial transaction, but a lifeline, a source of happiness that enriches my life in ways I had never envisioned. As a way to express my appreciation for all that they've done for me, I made a heartfelt promise to them. I told the couple that if they continued to care for me with the same level of dedication and love that they had shown thus far, I would reward them with a separate bonus of 5 million won. Their reaction was one of profound shock and gratitude. When they heard about the bonus, their eyes filled with disbelief and joy. They expressed how life-changing that amount would be for them, how it could provide them with the sense of security they had long been seeking. Their heartfelt reaction deeply moved me. They shared with me that if they were fortunate enough to care for other elderly individuals who were kind-hearted, they would offer them the same devotion and care they had given me. Their words were a testament to their integrity and genuine love for others, and they warmed my heart. It filled me with hope, knowing that there are people like them in the world. People who, despite their own struggles, still find ways to show kindness and compassion to others. This arrangement has brought a profound sense of stability to my life. It feels as though the clouds of uncertainty, which once overshadowed my old age, have finally begun to part. The sun is shining through, bringing with it a renewed sense of peace and security that I had not felt in a long time. I am now able to enjoy my days with the knowledge that I am not alone, and that I have people who care for me and who I can rely on. The next chapter of our story will focus on the poignant experience of Grandpa Kim, an 80-year-old man who, despite facing immense financial struggles, has found a way to navigate the challenges of aging with dignity and comfort. The fear of losing one's independence is something many elderly individuals, like Grandpa Kim, understand all too well. It is a fear that comes not just from the loss of mobility or the need for care, but from the emotional toll of relying on others for basic needs. For many, the idea of living in a nursing home or becoming a burden to their loved ones is terrifying. It is as if they are losing their very identity, their sense of self. For Grandpa Kim, this fear has been compounded by the weight of financial insecurity, which makes the prospect of an independent, comfortable old age seem like an impossible dream. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Grandpa Kim, and this year, I am 80 years old. 3 years ago, I lost my beloved wife after a long and exhausting battle with illness. That day, which still feels like it happened just yesterday, marked the beginning of my life without her. Since her passing, I have been navigating the world alone, carrying the heavy burden of grief and loneliness. While I have a daughter, she has also been facing many of her struggles. Her life has been fraught with hardship, and her marriage to my son-in-law has only added to the weight of her burdens. My son-in-law, whom I had hoped would be a strong and reliable partner for my daughter, has proven to be nothing but a source of frustration and heartache. His low income and abusive behavior have cast a dark shadow over our family. I feel utterly powerless, watching as my daughter endures the mistreatment that comes from someone who is supposed to protect her, not harm her. My daughter, now in her late 50s, has never had a day where her happiness was truly her own. Instead, she has dedicated herself completely to her husband and son, living a life of routine that revolves around endless cycles of commuting and caregiving. The love that should have lifted her has instead become a source of constant torment. My son-in-law's cruel nature traps her in a cycle of manipulation and fear, leaving her with no way out. It breaks my heart to witness my daughter's suffering at the hands of this man. Despite all his flaws, my son-in-law possesses a cruel and calculating ability to keep her under his control. Whenever she dares to voice her desire for freedom, he responds with violence, silencing her words and crushing her hope. His cruelty is compounded by the fact that in our household, she has no one to defend her. Apart from me, an elderly man who has lost much of his strength, no one can stand up to him. This leaves my daughter exposed, vulnerable to his harsh treatment, with no one to intervene. My grandson, now in his 20s, has grown up in an environment marked by fear and intimidation. The constant tension in our household has stifled his ability to defend his mother. As I watch this, I feel an overwhelming sorrow and helplessness. My daughter cannot protect herself, and I am utterly powerless to support her as I would like to. In the years before my wife passed, we were each other's strength. Together, we faced life's challenges, but since her death, the burden of living has become unbearably heavy. A year ago, I suffered a stroke, and after enduring months of difficult rehabilitation, I was left with paralysis on the right side of my body. The realization of this new reality settled in, and I found myself engulfed by despair and frustration. I spent days crying, mourning not just the loss of my physical abilities but also the life I had hoped to give my family. One built on love, respect, and security. Each tear was a reminder of the life I once had and the future that now seems so distant. As I reflect on my situation, I long to reclaim my role as a protector and provider for my daughter, but I find myself in an incredibly difficult position. I have no other children who can care for me in my old age, and I lack the financial means to afford elder care. My pension, a mere 38,000 won each month, is hardly enough to cover basic expenses, let alone the cost of care. On top of this, I have only about 1 million won in savings, an amount that seems insignificant when compared to the rising costs of living. With these limited resources, the dream of moving into a nursing home or hiring a caregiver feels unattainable. The emotional strain of my situation only deepens when I think back to the day I was discharged from the hospital. It was my grandson who came to take me home, providing a small comfort amidst the chaos of my health challenges. However, My daughter finds herself in a particularly difficult and suffocating situation. Her husband, with his oppressive and overbearing nature, makes it nearly impossible for her to feel a sense of freedom or peace. She's caught in this emotional vice, unable to express her frustrations or ask for help, leaving me with an overwhelming sense of isolation. It's as though I'm watching her from a distance, deeply concerned but powerless to intervene in any meaningful way. Despite having retired, her responsibilities seem to have only increased, as if she were never allowed to step away from the burden of caring for her family. Her daily life has become a never-ending cycle of meal preparation and tending to her husband's needs, draining her of the energy to fully enjoy her own life. It's an exhausting and thankless routine, one that she can't escape, and I feel her pain deeply. When I first moved back home, I found myself navigating a new and challenging reality. I had no choice but to rely on food delivery services for the simplest of meals. This adjustment was filled with a sense of uncertainty as I stumbled through this unfamiliar territory. It was a mixture of gratitude for the convenience and frustration at my inability to keep up with the modern technology that seemed to be a part of daily life now. Fortunately, my grandson was always there to help, and he would take care of placing the orders online for me. I struggled with the technology myself, so his assistance was invaluable. Each time he made an order, I would transfer him 10,000 VND to cover the cost, and when the money ran out, I would hesitate and feel awkward, having to ask him to make another order. To make it easier for the delivery drivers, I would leave my front door open so they could enter and hand me my food, which, in many ways, felt like a lifeline to me. My grandson would stop by every so often to help with small but necessary tasks, like emptying the bathroom waste, assisting me with my bathing routine, or taking out the trash. These were small acts of kindness that made my days a little more manageable. Yet, over time, I began to sense a shift in his attitude. There was an underlying tension in his words when he mentioned that he barely had any time for himself anymore. His life was feeling more and more constrained by the responsibilities I had unintentionally placed on him. He even confessed that he was worried his girlfriend might leave him if she found out just how much of a burden I had become. That conversation was painful, a harsh reality to confront. But deep down, I knew he was right. He had his own life to live, full of his hopes, dreams, and relationships. Asking him to take on the full responsibility of caring for me indefinitely simply wasn't a fair or sustainable solution. I could sense the internal conflict he was experiencing, and it weighed heavily on my heart. I never wanted to be a burden on him. The thought that my needs might interfere with his happiness was almost unbearable. It was heartbreaking to realize that, as an elderly person, there were very few options available to me. The reality for many older individuals like myself is that, without adequate financial resources, the cost of proper care is out of reach. The minimum cost for a nursing home is a staggering 50,000 VND a month, a sum that my small pension could never cover. Even hiring a home caregiver is an expensive option, one that is simply beyond my means. These financial constraints made me feel trapped, like there was no viable solution to my situation. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. After countless sleepless nights spent weighing my options and contemplating my future, I stumbled upon a possible solution. One that seemed to meet my needs without placing an overwhelming burden on my already limited finances. When I discovered this method, it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I experienced a deep sense of relief. The tension that had been building for so long began to ease, and I found myself able to sleep soundly, something I hadn't done in ages. I began to imagine a future that wasn't so bleak, one where I could have a sense of stability and peace, and I was filled with a quiet sense of hope. The following day, as the weekend arrived and brought with it the promise of rest, I felt a growing sense of urgency. The soft morning light filtered gently through the curtains, and I felt a stirring in my heart. I wanted to speak to my grandson, to share with him the idea that had been occupying my thoughts. Without thinking twice, I reached for my phone and called him. My voice was filled with eagerness and a touch of urgency, as I knew that this conversation could be life-changing for both of us. At first, he hesitated, mentioning that he had other things to attend to, but something in my tone must have compelled him, for he agreed to come over. His arrival brought me a sense of relief, as though a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. When he came to my home, I invited him to sit beside my bed. This small but intimate setting felt like the right place for the conversation that was about to unfold. My heart raced as I prepared to share my thoughts with him. I knew this wasn't going to be an easy conversation, but it was necessary. With a deep breath, I laid out the two options before him. Two paths that I had been contemplating for some time, each with its own set of consequences. The first option was something I had been dreading. The idea of selling our family home, a place that held countless memories, and using the proceeds to enter a nursing home. The thought of spending my final days in a cold, impersonal facility, devoid of the warmth of family and familiar surroundings, was a difficult pill to swallow. It filled me with a deep sense of loneliness, and I couldn't bear the thought of living out my days in such isolation. The second option, however, offered a glimmer of hope. I proposed transferring the ownership of the house to him, asking for his commitment to live with me. I also suggested that he consider getting married and perhaps even starting a family, right there in the house that had been a part of our family for so long. To sweeten the offer, I shared with him my modest savings of 1 million VND, which I hoped could assist with household expenses. I emphasized that my desire to live together wasn't driven solely by a need for care, but rather by a mutual understanding of the challenges we both faced. I wanted to create a supportive and loving environment for both of us, a place where we could continue to grow and live out our lives in harmony. I came to the sobering realization that it was unrealistic and perhaps even unfair to expect a young person in their 20s to bear the immense responsibility of caring for an elderly relative who struggles with basic independence. It's a widely recognized fact that even biological children, those who have grown up alongside their aging parents and who have witnessed the inevitable changes of aging firsthand, can find it incredibly overwhelming to provide the care that's required in the later years of their parents' lives. This is especially true as their parents approach the final stages of life when the need for care becomes constant and intense. Given this, how much more difficult would it be for a grandson, someone from an entirely different generation, to shoulder such a weight? The sheer scale of this realization hit me hard, and it lingered in my thoughts, weighing heavily on my heart and mind. To alleviate the burden on my grandson and ensure that my own needs were met with dignity, I decided to hire a part-time caregiver who could assist with some of the more physically demanding and time-consuming tasks, such as meal preparation and laundry. These might seem like small, everyday chores to most people, but for someone in my position, they are essential for maintaining a sense of normalcy and self-respect. I carefully calculated the costs and determined that hiring a caregiver at a rate of $2,100 a month would be manageable within the constraints of my pension, which amounts to $3,800 each month. With this arrangement, I would still be able to afford other necessities, making it a practical solution to my current needs. What I valued most about the idea of living with my grandson was not only the company and emotional support he could offer, but also the occasional personal care he could provide during moments of vulnerability. For someone like me, who is no longer able to navigate life fully independently, the thought of being left alone at home, especially in an emergency, was a constant source of anxiety. The idea of being unable to reach out for help if something went wrong was a haunting thought. To my great relief, when I discussed the possibility of him living with me, my grandson enthusiastically embraced the idea. He explained that living with me would provide him with a sense of peace and stability, especially given the challenges he had faced living with his father, whose temperament could often be difficult. His openness and genuine willingness to be there for me touched my heart deeply, reaffirming my belief that this arrangement could bring both of us fulfillment, joy, and a renewed sense of connection. Another comforting aspect of this decision was that my home, while modest, had enough space to accommodate not only my grandson but potentially a growing family as well. The thought of him marrying and starting a family did not fill me with dread. In fact, I welcomed the idea. There was ample room, and I knew that even if he were to marry tomorrow and have children, there would still be enough space for everyone to live comfortably. My grandson, in his search for solutions, had found a caregiver through an agency, and I was relieved when we agreed on a monthly salary of $1,800 for her services. She would begin her day at 9 a.m., handling the household chores, including washing my clothes, tidying up the house, and preparing lunch. After completing her tasks, she would leave but would return in the evening to help with dinner preparation and to clean up afterward, ensuring that the house remained a sanctuary of comfort, warmth, and care. With this new arrangement in place, I felt a sense of profound peace and contentment. I knew I could rely on both my grandson and the caregiver to create a nurturing and supportive environment that would not only take care of my physical needs but also enrich the emotional atmosphere of our home. It was heartwarming to see how our relationships began to flourish. There was a palpable sense of love, respect, and mutual understanding that formed the foundation of our daily lives. In addition, I thoughtfully arranged to provide the caregiver with an extra $1,000 a month for meals, ensuring that there was enough food for everyone and that no one would go hungry. This arrangement has worked out incredibly well. The caregiver has often returned a few hundred at the end of each month since my eating habits are simple and modest. I typically eat just 2 meals a day, and I've never been particularly fond of heavy meats or side dishes. As such, the 1,100 I've allocated for meals has consistently been more than sufficient to meet my needs. At this point, I consider myself fortunate to have my grandson living with me, as his presence adds warmth and joy to my daily life that I have been missing for some time. As we've slowly but surely made repairs and improvements to the house, it has become more comfortable and convenient for everyone. What fills me with even greater joy, however, is the harmonious way the caregiver interacts with my grandson and granddaughter. There is a real sense of family unity that has blossomed in our home, one that I deeply treasure. It's such a blessing to see how the relationships between us have grown stronger and more loving, creating an environment where everyone feels supported and valued. Reflecting on my situation, I feel a true sense of satisfaction and peace with the life I have crafted for myself. Thanks to careful planning and a bit of foresight, I can enjoy a relatively comfortable old age with minimal expenses. I've been able to save over 1,100 for my monthly pension, which provides me with a sense of financial security and peace of mind that is incredibly uplifting. I truly believe that elderly individuals, even those without a strong financial foundation, can find ways to arrange their living situations in ways that meet their needs, provided they are proactive and resourceful in seeking out solutions. Every elderly person deserves the opportunity to live comfortably and to approach the later stages of life with dignity and without unnecessary suffering. Human nature, in its essence, often reveals itself as practical and, at times, undeniably selfish. It's a deeply disheartening reality to witness how even the strongest, most enduring bonds, such as those shared between siblings, can begin to waver and falter when subjected to the trials and tribulations that life inevitably throws our way. Whether it's the pressures of career, health concerns, or financial burdens, these forces can erode relationships that once seemed unbreakable. This undeniable truth underscores a fundamental lesson that all elderly individuals must internalize: the critical importance of putting in place their safety nets, both emotionally and financially, to avoid unnecessary pain, hardship, and heartache. This precaution is essential, regardless of how deeply devoted or loving their children may be, because, at the end of the day, no one can predict the course of life with certainty. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. One of the most essential safety nets for seniors is the establishment of an emergency fund, and the importance of such a fund simply cannot be overstated. Having financial resources set aside, even in modest amounts, can be a source of immeasurable comfort during moments of crisis. In times of uncertainty, the security of knowing there's a financial cushion to fall back on can provide an immense sense of relief. It offers peace of mind when faced with unexpected health issues, sudden home repairs, or other emergencies that might otherwise feel overwhelming. There inevitably comes a time in life when one must come to terms with the reality that familial bonds, no matter how loving and supportive, cannot always guarantee the financial support that may be needed. In these moments, having the foresight to save can make all the difference. Indeed, there are certain times in life when the need for financial assistance from family becomes painfully clear. A single timely transfer from a bank account can alleviate multiple worries, solving a host of issues in one fell swoop and lifting a burden off the shoulders of the elderly. However, while we may hold the ideal that our children will offer unwavering support out of a sense of duty or filial piety, we must also be mindful of the challenges they face in their own lives. They, too, are navigating their obstacles, whether it be their own families, financial struggles, or career pressures. As much as we might wish for unconditional support, we must approach our children with understanding, recognizing that their capacity to help may be limited. When we demand assistance without acknowledging their struggles, we risk creating tension or strain in what should be a supportive, loving relationship. Ultimately, the journey of life is one of personal growth, transformation, and self-discovery. No matter how advanced in age we become, or whether we find ourselves unable to live completely independently, the key to maintaining a fulfilling life lies in our mindset. If we can maintain a positive outlook, embracing a sense of tranquility and resilience, we open ourselves to the opportunity for personal growth at any stage of life. Aging doesn't have to be a time of decline. Rather, it can be an era of rediscovery, connection, and joy. Each day presents a new chance to embrace life's beauty, build meaningful relationships, and cultivate a deeper understanding of ourselves. When we adopt this mindset, we not only enhance our well-being but also enrich the lives of those around us, transforming the later years of life into an inspiring journey of growth and fulfillment. And that's a wrap for today's video. We've explored some important topics today, from personal growth and life lessons to practical advice that can truly make a difference in how we live. I hope you found these insights valuable and that they inspire you to make positive changes in your life. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's the one thing you've learned today that you plan to bring into practice in your own life? Whether it's about health, relationships, or life advice, let me know in the comments below. I always enjoy reading your thoughts and feedback. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Your support means the world to me and helps us continue to grow and bring you more valuable tips and life lessons. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.